Theodore. He's a tugboat and a friendly tugboat too. A friendly tugboat too. Oh, Theodore likes to do the things that friendly tugboats do. Pushing and a pulling in the great big harbor, in the great big world is so much fun. So many brand new things to discover. Waking with the sun, gotta get the job done. Oh, Theodore and Emily, Fodak, Hank and George, and the harbor master too.
Theodore and Hank were very happy that morning. You see, George was away on an ocean job, and that meant Theodore and Hank were given the big job of bringing in a new ship by themselves. "The new ship's name is Scally," said Theodore excitedly. "But if this is Scally's first visit," said Hank, "how will we know what he looks like?" "Well," smiled Theodore, "the dispatcher said we can't miss him." From the moment the two tugboats saw Scally, they couldn't do anything but stare.
Well, when you're completely decked out in all kinds of weird-looking stuff, how could you not notice a ship like that? And by the look of it, Scally just looks like a hoarder who collects very obscure things. Does he not carry any sort of important cargo? Just stuff? Well, whatever he did, Theodore and Hank continued on and welcomed the ship into the harbor.
"Welcome to the Big Harbour," said Theodore. "My pleasure entirely," said Scally. Hank found Scally to be very friendly, and he was curious. "Where did you get all that stuff?" he asked. "Stuff?" said Scally. "Oh, you mean my treasures. Oh, I have lots and lots of treasures from all over the world. And I'd like to share them with you and all your friends in this grand big harbor." "Wait until Fodak and Emily see this," thought Theodore. "And to thank you for your kind help, Theodore, I'd like to give you this wind spinner," said Scally. "Go show your friends. Tell them I love to have visitors."
Yeah, you probably just want visitors so you can give away all your junk. And hey, look at that, Theodore got the very first fidget spinner. No, but for real, the treasure he received was actually an anemometer for measuring wind speed. Here's a question, what do you particularly need that for? Why would you take something if you have no idea how it works? Betcha he just took that just to be nice. Well, after receiving his treasure from Scally, Fodak was now intrigued and decided to get his own treasure. He arrived back at the dock later on to show off his new emergency horn.
"Oh, it's my new improved emergency horn," said Fodak. "I've got it from Scally." "Well, how does it work?" asked Theodore. Well, Fodak tried and tried, but he couldn't get his new horn to make a sound. "Well, that's the quietest horn I've ever heard," said Emily. "Well, it was working a minute ago," said Fodak. "Well, I want something from Scally too," said Hank. "Scally is just full of great stuff," said Fodak. Suddenly, his new emergency horn went off all by itself, scaring Hank. "Oops," said Fodak. "Oh, yeah, it does that sometimes." "I'm starting to feel funny," said Theodore.
Oh yeah, that's gonna be fun to listen to throughout the rest of this episode. So that's two tugs now with treasures from Scally. And it seems like Fodak and Theodore bid a little more than what they bargained for. Of course, Hank had to get one too. He ended up getting a big orange bumper that looked like it came off a frickin' monster truck. His problem was that he kept bumping into everyone given how enormous it was. And what do you know, soon after, Emily came back with an enormous smokestack extension. Seriously, where did Scally get this?
"Do you like my new smokestack extension?" asked Emily. "Scally says it makes me look faster." "Oops. Oh, sorry, Emily," said Hank. "I'm not used to this big new bumper." At that moment, Folek's emergency horn went off again and scared them all. I don't know why it keeps doing that, said Folek. Theodore, too, was having problems with his wind spinner. The twirling was making him dizzy. Well, said Theodore woozily, I better get back to work.
Okay, here's a silly question. Just where exactly was that smokestack extension? It was nowhere on his deck. Even so, the tugs were experiencing more problems with their stuff. Theodore in particular. He didn't look so good as he went to move Bobby Barge later that afternoon.
Oh, moaned Theodore. Oh, I don't feel well. You're seasick, Theodore, said Bobby, from watching that spinner. It does feel better when I close my eyes, groaned Theodore. Watch out there, dinged Bedford. Hank was still showing his new bumper around the harbor. Oops, he said, colliding right into Theodore. This bumper is kind of, well, big. Well, Theodore realized steering with his eyes closed was not the answer. Maybe my spinner isn't so great after all, he thought.
Took you long enough since you've been dizzily sick for how many minutes now? I don't even want to know how the hell he was even able to steer with his eyes closed. As for Hank's comment with his bumper being big, no, really? What use did you have with a gigantic bumper that big? It's nothing but a nuisance to not only you, but everyone else. But anyway, Hank volunteered to help Theodore move Bobby, with yet another problem followed right after the other.
Oh, it's my new bumper, he said. It's too big. I keep bouncing off everything. Well, just then, Emily arrived. Here, said Emily, I'll help you finish the job. But Emily's smokestack extension quickly got her in trouble. Uh-oh, said Emily. She was caught in Bobby's crane. Hey, said Bobby. Oh, someone get me out of here, cried Emily. Fodak was sailing nearby and hurried over when he heard Emily shout. Everyone stay calm, called Fodak. It's important to stay calm in an emergency. Suddenly, Fodak's new emergency horn went off, startling everyone. And Fodak most of all. Who? Like, what? Where? What? He called out. He felt anything but calm.
Okay, I'll admit that was kind of funny. But again, if they've all been experiencing problems left and right, why did they even bother keeping all this stuff for this long? It was just making them more and more miserable. And they couldn't even move a simple barge without something else happening. Now feeling very tired from their troubling day and disappointed that their stuff was nothing but junk, all the tugs didn't know what to do. That is until Theodore began to laugh.
Well, what's so funny, Theodore? Asked Emily. I'm sorry, Emily, said Theodore. But those smokestack extensions look pretty silly. I bet my bumper looks pretty silly, too, said Hank. We all look kind of silly, said Emily. And sound silly, too, said Fodak. I've an idea, said Theodore. Let's get rid of all this stuff. Then we can finish the job.
Gee, there's an idea. About time reality smacked you all in the face. You don't really need these things to make you look more important or faster or whatever. Just go about your business. So after giving Scally back all of his stuff, the tugs were finally able to dock Bobby and everything seemed normal again. At least for a bit.
As soon as they got rid of Scally's stuff, moving Bobby Barge was a breeze. Just then, they all heard a ship's horn. That ship is heading out to the ocean, said Hank. If you see Scally out there, called Theodore, don't get any of his stuff. Yes, useless, all the tugs shouted. It's useless! But it seemed that before Scally had left the Big Harbor, he'd made one last visit to Bedford Bowie.
And that concludes Scally's stuff. This episode is a lot sillier than the last one, I will say. The story itself is not bad, but it's not perfect either, I don't think. The only lesson I can really get out of this is don't take items from strangers, especially if you don't know what they are or have no significant purpose to make your life easier. I mean, the tugs didn't really have any use for these things to begin with. They just took them because they could. I wouldn't say that completely puts them out of character, but at least they now know what Scally has is completely useless to them. Makes you wonder, what would George have gotten if he was featured in this episode? Which, by the way, viewers are introduced to Scally, which, by the look of him, he's just a hoarder ship who collects these random things from different places. He doesn't carry any kind of important cargo, so I don't even know why they even bother having him in commission just to collect this random stuff. No surprise, but this is his only speaking role in the show, so we won't be seeing any more of him or his useless stuff. Music was a tad different this time. Within some of the normal themes, you can hear Dizzy themes, particularly with Theodore, and Scally's theme sort of has that chipper carnival-sounding music to him, which was also nice. Visuals once again are random places in the harbor going back and forth between the Great Ocean Dock, Scally's Dock, and Willie's Island. Like I said before, I don't think this is a bad episode, but it definitely is one of my least favorites so far. Next episode is Theodore's Big Friend.